everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. It's my first video. I'm so excited. I'll talk about rave and rave culture, which is the subject of my first drawing video. And on the other hand, I will draw an illustration inspired by this theme. Let me say from the beginning, in this video I won't give information about the technique of illustration, such as how to draw, which brush should we use. You will only be able to watch me draw. After making my morning, we can move on to the subject of our video. So, this will be an illustration shaped around concepts such as rave, electronic dance music, underground party, 90s youth culture. Of course, I have a background that inspired me to make this drawing. The documentaries, films, books and articles I read on this subject have created a lot of excitement in me. I'm already more or less familiar with this concept. Rave, party, techno, DJ, festivals, etc. In this respect, it was a subject that I've been very sympathetic to for a long time. I mean, a few years ago, I didn't know that what I only recognize as tıp music had quite a historical background, and I didn't expect that this would lead to this illustration. But inspiration is like that. As you read and watch, something accumulates in the brain and you vomit it out. You can do it as a painting, you can do it as a film, but the process is the same. Now, I will start to explain this concept that causes this accumulation at the point that appeals more to popular culture. If you have questions such as what rave is, when electro music emerged, why it took the whole world by storm in the 90s, this content will be for you. Let me tell you that I won't explain electronic music technically. Now, when we say rave, we need to look at a culture and subculture formation before that. Because what we call rave is essentially a formation, a style. It's not a music genre. We can think of it as an ambient environment where electronic music is taken as a reference. And what we call music has a formative effect on the identity construction process of young people since the 1950s. If anyone asks why this happened in the 1950s and why it didn't happen in the 18th century, we need to look at modern society for that. Of course, I'm explaining it a little bit nulled, but it's a broad concept because it has a large volume and many layers, so I won't mention it in detail without boring you too much. To understand the formation of cultures or youth cultures, we need to understand modern society. In other words, we need to know concepts such as modernization, modern society, and modern cities. If we look at the first urban designs, of course, I will not connect this to the first civilizations such as Mesopotamia and Egypt, which we learn in history lessons, because what I want to talk about here is the closest to our current perception of society. And that dates back to the 14th to 15th century, more or less. Imagine a village. A primeval village. It's invaded by knights and life is established there by these forces. Of course, these people don't want to live in tiny, ruined village houses, and they build castles for themselves. For them to produce for themselves, they make these people live within their structure, that is, they take them under their patronage. And an infrastructure that we can call the first urban design is formed in the ongoing process. In other words, there are environments where these subjects, lords, counts, overlords live, you have come across in films. Then these castles are surrounded by walls. City-states are formed inside them. Of course, these city-states become very powerful, and since there is no country in the current sense, these feudal principalities are very many and they fight among themselves. Humanist thought in the 15th to 16th centuries forms the basis for the Renaissance. The reform in the 16th century builds a new system of values. Scientific developments in the 17th century, the French Revolution of 1789 and the Industrial Revolution, which gave a rapid impetus to the phenomenon of society, builds modern society. When we say modernity and modern society, we mean communication between societies, the functioning of general system and an organization between people. At the moment, since we are already a postmodern society as of the 2020s, not even modern, although a common decision has not been reached in the sociological literature, but anyway, this concept is something that's quite customary for us and is so ingrained in everything that it cannot even be thought about. You know, there is no other principle of life. It has almost become the definition of life. But such a thing was out of the question for ancient societies, and when it first started to emerge, it caused great fluctuations, great depressions. In other words, the formation of cities, industrialization, the sudden penetration of people into the same position is something very new for the people of that period. Especially after the Industrial Revolution, there is a lot of migration from the countryside to the cities, almost an agglomeration. And a concept emerged in urban life that never existed in village life. That is anonymity. In other words, imagine that there is already a very small population in the village and everyone knows each other. The work you do is certain, you can't leave the place where you were born. You are already bound to your lord. You are bound to a subject. There is no alternative life, or you cannot create another identity, a persona for yourself. But cities are not like that. There are too many people. Nobody knows you. In other words, only the people close to you in the city, you are in know you. There is no acquaintance like the entire population in the village. Apart from that, there is fragmentation in cities. There is a nature in the village. Everywhere has the same content and form. But when you change streets in cities, the tone changes. A ghetto neighborhood and a very elite neighborhood can be in the same city, and you can see these two different lifestyles on the same day. You are exposed to different characters, different lifestyles. There is also another situation, which is to sell something imaginary without making a physical production. I'm talking about the service sector. When there is urbanization, many professions emerge, and these professions are not tangible professions such as producing fruits and vegetables. Professions such as pickpocketing, clowning, prostitution, gambling, etc. When we come towards the 20th century, countries start to be more perceptible, and with the development of communication, the perception that people live in one country, in one society is reinforced. Of course, until the 40s, the people of the world are dealing with wars. They experience great traumas, and when the 40s come, this post-war period becomes a period of expression for people. Popular cultures start to form as people come together. For example, there was a rock and roll culture at that time. Imagine people coming together in ballrooms or clubs and dancing rock and roll in a very intimate way. Those were the times when Elvis Presley was an icon. People are now starting to meet around an entertainment culture. Of course, before the 40s, this was still there. It was more of an entertainment culture that developed around jazz and blues. But society was conservative, especially in the dance parties in USA after the 40s. Black people and white people start to establish very close social relations with rock music, and this created a great sensation in society. Families were very uneasy in the face of such intimacy. They even found this situation very immoral. As a matter of fact, this didn't prevent the birth of subcultures. Rock and roll of 50s defined the concept of dance and entertainment for that period. After the 60s, this turned into rock concerts. By the 70s, the dance culture of the 50s was replaced by the act of listening, and the rock and roll culture evolved into rock culture. With the transfer of rock and roll concerts, a void was created in discos and paved the way for new concepts. Gradually, the electronic music movement began to emerge. In an industrial society, that is, in a society where production processes come to the fore and industrial products register the basis of the economy, this type of music is formed and the environment is incredibly suitable. As a result of the Second World War, the modern, industrial, developmental capitalist society that emerged in USA, England, and Western Europe, especially in Germany, and its dominant culture enabled the production of new technologies, that is, new accessories of modern life. I'm talking about the electronic industry, and this industry paves the way for electronic music. In Germany, two classical music students produced an experimental electronic music using industrial sounds laid the foundation of this genre. Who are these people? This is Kraftwerk, a very important band for that period. I discovered their music on this occasion. I recommend you to listen to it. Radioactivity, for example, is a song that's so millennial that I cannot believe it was produced in that period. When you listen to some of their songs, you can feel yourself in a magnetic resonance machine in some parts of the song. I'm not a music commentator, but I'll describe these first attempts in the simplest terms. You know how in the 2000s, when we were entering the millennium, there were millennium colors, blues, bright phosphorescent clothes, glasses, aluminium foil fashion. I guess I can't say that this is the kind of synthetic music I feel inside me. Please don't let people who criticize this music react to me. Anyway, let's move on. Kraftwerk eventually became legendary by laying the foundation of electronic dance music, EDM. Of course, musical experiments were made before this date. At least, machines were invented. It even dates back to 1897. An electronic musical instrument called the telharmonium was invented by Thaddeus Cahill. And friends, this machine is 200 tones. There are electronic musical instruments such as theremin and snare. There are electronic musical instruments such as theremin and snare. Kraftwerk produces music at a tonnage never heard before, especially using the snare. The Beach Boys also have songs produced by using theremin, so we can say that they are the first examples. The song Good Vibrations can also be given as an example. Not only in Germany some productions shape electronic music, especially in USA and England, these movements are also happening. Of course, we should not ignore the political atmosphere here. I think that there's a moment that subculturizes electronic music because the outputs here are mostly powered by an attitude against the system. So, after 1970, a concept called neoliberalism emerged in the world. This means that, as a person who knows nothing about economics, I will explain it to you in the easiest way to understand. It's the moment of minimizing the state's intervention in the market and giving all kinds of opportunities to private capital. At that time, there was Margaret Thatcher in England and Ronald Reagan in USA. Both of them caused social life crises in their countries. For example, in Thatcher's Britain, there was incredible repression. Under the Thatcherism of the Britain of the 80s, reaction currents that trigger each other are forming. It's the same in USA. Because of Reagan's deindustrialization policy, working cities like New York, Chicago, and Detroit are turning into ghost cities, and this depression gives birth to the hip-hop movement in New York. For example, this is another subculture. Techno and club culture emerged in Detroit, and this club culture developed as a defense strategy led by African American artists against Reaganism. In Chicago, homosexuals who were excluded by the society were partying in gay clubs towards the end of the 1970s. DJs sampling the records. There is also a concept called DJ, and this is a little more negative than DJ, who make electronic music. There is also a concept called DJ, and this is a little more negative than DJs who make electronic music. If you ever seen a DJ booth, it's device like an aeroplane cockpit with lots of bright neon lights and buttons. DJs didn't use such things in the past. What we call DJ started with records first. The simplest way is playing two records at the same time, stop one and move the other to make sounds that you have more control over. Anyway, DJ is the abbreviated form of disc jockey. If you ask when the first DJ appeared, I can say that is the date of the first DJ was about 1940s, and the first DJ was Jim Savvy. He plays two records at the same time and uses a DJ gramophone. Then in the 1970s, the hip-hop culture I just mentioned was emerging in the labor cities. People were stealing records from music stores in Brooklyn at that time. Of course, these people are from the lower class. I mean, ghettos, black people. This segment creates hip-hop culture, that is what we call MC. Of course, there are many types of DJ today, such as radio DJ, performance DJ, animation DJ. By the way, you can still do analog DJ with a DJ gramophone. Let's go back to the 70s again. In the same way, house music emerged when DJ sampled records in gay bars in Chicago and obtained new sounds from disco and funk records. House comes from the name of the gay bar, the warehouse. In the 80s, house music spread beyond USA to Europe, and house music becomes an outlet for young people who are tired of political depression. House music in England turns into acid house. Rave culture emerged in England. If I talk about rave, the word rave dates back to the Middle Ages. It was first used in the sense of madness. This is how it originated. It enters the party culture in the 1940s as the word rave up. Rave up is used to describe the wild bohemian parties of beatniks in London in the late 1950s. In 1967, rave is used for the first time in the sense of gathering event. With the emergence of acid house in England, the word becomes widespread. Rave culture offers young people the unity of difference. After all, this is not just a gathering. It is experienced as an alternative living space for young people who cannot keep up with society and feel free. Do you know how everyone has an ideal place in their minds? These people have the motivation to establish and produce another world. Utopian oases, ideal places where they can come together in a, albeit temporarily, dreamed of by those who cannot exist in the system, who don't want to exist in the system, who are exiled by the system, or who go into exile voluntarily. The people who go there leave their official faces, their titles in society outside. Social pressures are minimized, so you feel like a better life is possible. You have the opportunity to live that dream for a while. You are away from a restrictive society. You are free. You are also free in your dance moves. There is no specific choreography. You are not bound to a certain culture, tradition, or modern choreography. You move with a completely instinctive motion. That's why it more or less turns into a youth culture. And so I can't even imagine, I guess, field parties, abandoned factories, hangars, empty fields far from the city, and secret parties. You can only reach them if you have a phone number. Imagine these parties start at night, the whole city sleeps, and you go to a secret wonderland. Nobody knows. Thousands of people who feel like you meet in a common experience. You dance until the morning, even for days. Yes, there are parties where you dance for 2 days straight, and of course you have to use certain substances to stay awake. It's completely illegal. In England, at that time, nightlife was restricted. Laws were constantly being passed. Nightclubs were closing early. Due to both the illegality of these parties and substance abuse, of course, an air of panic was created. Families and the government got involved, and rave was banned in the UK in 1994. Of course, for a certain period of time, and it continued to be held during the ban. After all, you can't prevent it. The same bans were imposed in Turkey. I never mentioned Turkey, but of course Turkey also got its share from the electronic music wave. In the 1960s, Turkey's entertainment concept was based on casino and pavilion entertainment. Although there was such an understanding in the world before discotheques, previously people only wanted live music performances. The fact that recorded music was listened to by large masses for dance purposes was broken in the 50s when young people started to do rock and roll activities in discotheques. Otherwise, you don't even see a DJ at these rave parties. There is no DJ booth, the music comes from out of nowhere. It would be shocking for young people accustomed to the orchestra culture to jump directly into this environment. In the same way, in our country, the transition from orchestras to DJs did not happen immediately. There was a disco craze in the world of the 70s. People started to be interested in the dynamic dance moves they saw in cassettes, cinema, and films. Such an understanding of entertainment slowly started to sprout in our country as well, but it was not the same as in the world. The economic and political climate did not allow it. Nevertheless, we were not lacking. After all, the 80s generation no longer likes the old entertainment culture. They want to reveal in the dances they saw in those cassettes. And it was around this time that the 2019 nightclub emerged and the fate of generation exchanged. This nightclub is located in an auto center in Maslak, Istanbul. In fact, this is described in full detail in an episode of Shokopop about nightlife. I recommend you to watch it. I was incredibly impressed. Erotic dance shows were organized. Every night there was a different concept with very extreme shows, and pop figures who were just starting to come out of that time participated in these parties. At the Metallica concert in 1993, Metallica goes to After in 2019. It's such a legendary place. Strip shows, drag queens, techno music, and fun-themed experiences. There are also interviews in that video. I will add the video to the description. Be sure to watch it. people who are regulars there tell their memories there. Let me tell you, I lost my mind while watching it. Millions of people are a part of this culture. I think it's an experience that everyone should experience at least for a certain period in their lives. Because we need to get away from this suffocating life we live. Thank you very much for watching me. See you in the next video.